And what he's saying is that it appears that the Sussexes made life a misery for the late Queen.
Yes, well, I mean, I've spoken with Hugo Vickers in my time as a royal correspondent, as a royal journalist. And I think what it shows is everything that we, the public, royal fans, royal commentators, journalists, have been saying for the last several years is true about, and I'm directing this really at Meghan Markle more than Prince Harry, who's been sort of dragged along by her in this charade that she has put onto the public. But what was really stinging was that the Queen, the late Queen, who is so dearly missed, saw through Meghan Markle. She saw through the Duchess of Sussex. She could see the trouble that lay ahead when Meghan came into the royal family. Go line it. But the effect that had on the Queen, don't underestimate it. It shocked her. And I really do think, especially in older people, things that we can maybe brush off because we're young, we're working well, things that the Queen could have brushed off 30 years ago. She couldn't brush off when she was in her 90s.
Couple of seconds. Have they got blood on their hands?
Yes.
Wow.
Before anything else, you need to understand the emotional core of this entire narrative, because everything else branches from here. At the center of the discussion is a claim that goes far beyond media criticism or entertainment failure. It is the idea that the actions, decisions, and public statements made by Harry and Meghan had real human consequences, particularly on an aging monarch in fragile health. The argument presented is not subtle. It suggests that during the final years of the Queen's life, when she was reportedly dealing with serious health challenges, advanced age, and the emotional weight of losing her husband, there was an added layer of stress introduced by public controversies involving the couple. This includes high-profile interviews, public accusations, media narratives that challenged the institution she represented. The key mechanism here is emotional amplification. The narrative doesn't just say there was conflict. It escalates that conflict into something morally charged. Not just disagreement, but distress. Not just tension, but harm. Not just criticism, but potential responsibility. It also frames timing as critical. The implication is that these events didn't happen in isolation. They happened at a moment when resilience was lowest. That timing is used to intensify perceived impact. Then there's the Oprah interview element. The framing suggests statements made publicly carried global reach. Allegations were presented in a way that could not easily be countered. The institution, and by extension, the Queen, was placed under scrutiny without direct defense. From a narrative construction standpoint, this is where sympathy is anchored. Once the audience accepts the premise that a vulnerable figure was negatively affected, everything that follows becomes easier to frame as reckless, irresponsible, or even damaging. There's also a secondary layer, Harry's positioning. He is portrayed as someone who understood the system, knew the protocols, yet participated in actions that contributed to the situation. That creates a dual-track argument. Meghan as the disruptive force, Harry as the enabler who should have known better. This is not accidental. It distributes responsibility while preserving a hierarchy of blame. Finally, the narrative pushes toward a near verdict without explicitly stating one. It stops just short of direct accusation, but heavily implies moral accountability. That ambiguity is strategic. It allows the audience to complete the conclusion themselves, which is far more persuasive than stating it outright.
Giddy up! Meghan Markle and Horsey Harry are galloping towards another of the trademark disasters that have turned them into Hollywood's saddest joke. Once upon a time, the ambitious Ms. Markle and her pound store prince were making grand plans to take Tinseltown by storm. But there's no happy ending to this feeble fairy tale as it descends into a sorry saga of pure farce. Among the entertainment industry's movers and shakers, the know-nothing Sussexes are now a laughingstock.
The opening is not neutral. It is deliberately constructed to shape perception before any evidence is presented. Right from the start, the subjects are framed using ridicule and dismissive language. They are not introduced as public figures with mixed reception. They are labeled as failures, as a joke, as people whose ambitions have collapsed. This matters because first impressions anchor interpretation. Once the audience accepts that premise, every subsequent claim is filtered through it. Key techniques used here: mockery instead of neutral description, overgeneralization, Hollywood's laughingstock, immediate positioning as irrelevant or incompetent. There is no attempt to establish balance. The goal is not to inform, it is to define the narrative battlefield. By the time actual examples are introduced, the audience has already been conditioned to interpret them negatively. Take a look at this next segment.
Meanwhile, the real-life drama of Meghan and Harry's upcoming pretend royal tour of Australia continues apace. The self-styled King and Queen of California are all set to head down under for their shamelessly venal visit. But there's a big problem. A fair few fed-up Australians don't want her ladyship and old ginger nuts anywhere near their fine country. But if the chronically crass couple must go there, hawking themselves for sale in cash-for-trash appearances, contemptuous locals are demanding that not a penny of taxpayers' money is spent on them. If, as he certainly will, safety-obsessed Harry insists on copious levels of security, Aussies say the Sussexes should be made to pay for their own protection. As this show's very own Australian Samara Gill explained, Harry and Meghan are going to get booed. Millions of us have great respect for the British royals, and we don't like the way this pair of posers have treated King Charles and his family since they ran away to America. This isn't a royal tour. It's a tawdry attempt to rake in the dough by two private citizens. Australians are very clear on this. Our message to the Sussexes is, come if you must, but pay your own way and fund your own protection.
Things are moving fast with the Sussexes right now, and the story is changing by the hour. If you want to make sure you never miss a breaking update on Meghan and Harry, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. We are tracking every move so you don't have to. Here, the narrative moves from perception into public reaction. The focus is on an upcoming visit to Australia, but the framing transforms it into something larger. Not a visit, but a cash-driven appearance. Not a tour, but a monetization strategy. The central claim is that they are operating as private individuals while still benefiting from the symbolic power of their former roles. This creates a tension. If they are private citizens, they should self-fund everything. If they expect public support, they are exploiting status. The security issue becomes the focal point. It's used as a concrete example to anchor a broader argument. Who pays? Who benefits? Who is responsible? Public opinion is then presented as unified, even though no real data is shown. This is a classic technique. Present selective voices. Frame them as majority sentiment. The result is a perception of widespread rejection, whether or not that reflects reality. At this stage, the narrative broadens. It's no longer just about one event. It becomes about overall reputation. The claim is that dissatisfaction is not isolated but widespread across different groups. Additional figures are introduced, along with past controversies, to create an environment of ongoing scandal. This does two things. It reinforces the idea of instability and controversy. It creates associative linkage. Controversy becomes contagious. Even unrelated issues are positioned in proximity, which subtly strengthens the perception of a pattern. Now, the focus shifts to professional output. The argument here is straightforward. Projects have been announced. Very few have materialized. Those that did are framed as unsuccessful. This section relies on repetition. Failure, delay, lack of delivery. The production company is portrayed as inactive or ineffective, and partnerships are framed as questionable decisions by the companies involved. The deeper message is not just that projects failed. It's that there's a pattern of overpromising and underdelivering. This is where emotional prediction enters. The audience is told what will likely happen. Public rejection, negative reception, disapproval. This is speculative, but it's presented with confidence. That confidence encourages the audience to accept it as probable, even inevitable. At the same time, the narrative personalizes the impact. Focus on how this reception would affect Meghan specifically. This shifts from external events to internal psychology, increasing engagement. At this stage, the narrative needs reinforcement. So an external authority is introduced, someone positioned as credible, experienced, and well-connected. This serves a clear purpose. Transition from opinion, perceive validation. The claims now carry more weight, not because they are proven, but because they are attributed to a recognized figure. This is one of the most powerful persuasion tools used in the entire structure. Now the story moves behind the scenes. The focus is on what happened internally, how the royal family responded, what support was provided. Examples are used to demonstrate accommodation and flexibility, including breaking traditional protocols. This creates a contrast. Institution equals supportive, structured, accommodating. Individual equals resistant, ungrateful, disruptive. The effectiveness here comes from specificity. Even if details are debated, the presence of detailed examples increases perceived credibility. Finally, the narrative reaches its most subjective stage. At this point, the discussion is no longer about actions. It is about identity and intent. Claims are made about motivation, personality, beliefs. This includes assertions of superiority, cultural framing, speculation about ambitions. This is where the narrative fully transitions from analysis into interpretation. And importantly, by this stage, the groundwork has already been laid. The audience has been guided through failure, controversy, authority, insider claims. So these final judgments feel like conclusions, even though they are largely speculative. If you're following this breakdown and you want more content like this, where we don't just repeat headlines, but actually dissect how narratives are built, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because understanding structure like this is what separates passive viewers from people who actually see what's going on. At this point, you should be able to see the full architecture at work. This isn't just a sequence of claims, it's a layered construction. Emotional anchor, framing, reinforcement, escalation. Every segment plays a role. Remove one, and the overall impact weakens. Keep them all aligned, and the narrative becomes persuasive, even when the underlying evidence is uneven. That's the real takeaway here. If you found this breakdown useful, go ahead and like the video, and thanks for watching.